What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by FanDuel. I am your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFL playoffs divisional round betting preview, where we will talk about our favorite totals, teasers, underdogs, and of course, crack open our weekly six-pack of bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuck. What is good?
What's going on, brother? It was the highlight of the weekend is I won prop I bet. My first NFL prop of the year was Gesicki touchdown, just for some shits in that game, and that should hit, which made up for a lot of heartbreak. The Ravens should have won, and to lose in that fashion was absolutely brutal. But Harbaugh on the road in the playoffs comes through again. And then I had the Chargers money line, and they became the first team in NFL history to lose with in the playoffs with a -5 turnover margin. No one's ever done it with a -4. And blew a 27-0 lead. And then I was sitting there happy I have the money line. And then Bosa, throws a tantrum and we get the 2, and then I knew it was pretty much over. But the Chargers turned into the Chargers again, and we're on to the divisional round. And in my opinion, this is the best weekend of the NFL season.
Yeah, man, it was quite an interesting round one. A lot of overs hit too, which was interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that really before we jump in? Because I know we talked about for the season there were so many backup quarterbacks, and then you had a couple of the normally reliable future Hall of Fame quarterbacks not playing as well. But it seemed like we get into the playoffs and the points were just piling up. Do you think that's just due to simply the kind of the better quality of teams, and the books were maybe using some of the league averages from the entire regular season, or do you think it was kind of more unique to just last week?
Yeah, I mean, there was probably a little bit of correction coming. I think that in the Jaguars Chargers game, I actually had the under there with you, and I would play that again. I mean, there was in the first half there was like 250 total yards and 40 points or something. There was just short fields and fluke turnovers and muff punts. So, and then, you get in a game state where one team's trying to come back crazily. So, and Ravens Bengals sneaks over. But yeah, the Bills Dolphins, Giants Vikings, Niners Seahawks, all easy over. So yeah, there could be something to that for what it's worth. And I think that we just did our draft for our six-pack, which will guide this episode a few minutes ago, and we interestingly have no totals. So yeah, I don't see. We usually are on the under trains. I don't think we had it. Do we have any totals in the? I don't think we had any totals.
I had the Jags. I had the Jags. So yeah, that was no. Actually, no, we didn't. I had the Jags.
Not the six-pack. I know you added that. I added that too. I would play that one again.
Yeah.
Just if you look at the nature of the points scored in that game and how fluky it was. I mean, what the yards per play were like, that was a pure under game. But yeah, we don't have any totals this week. So yeah, I would be I would maybe be a little hesitant of the unders historically. For what it's worth, this has been a dog round. Wild card is usually a favorite round. This has historically been a dog round. So we'll see how it plays out, but excited to get into these games. And I hear a lot of people always say I hear people say the 1 seed, like the 1 seed is such an advantage because of the bye. Not really, hasn't played out that way. Number 1 seeds are 13, 25, and 1 against the spread over the past 20 years in this round, when favored by less than 10 points, 8, 22, and 1 against the spread, 26.7%. I'm sure we're going to get into all of that, but yeah, it's historically been a dog round. We'll see if that plays out again.
Yeah, we'll see. We got a good six-pack to get to, so let's jump right in.
Oh wait, let me add one more thing before the six-pack, because this is a theme for all the games. We have 4. Now it's very hard to say this, but we have 4. It's hard to distill ref trends, but with the 4 refs here, we have 4. Generally speaking, I consider them slightly biased road refs, and for different reasons. So Vinovich is the GOAT. Vinovich is doing 49ers Cowboys, and he just calls no penalties ever. So part of home field a little bit, especially in the playoffs, is like you might get a call or two, right? Just because of the home crowd. He calls no penalties. I think he was the most successful home road against the spread ref, whatever, small sample sizes. The other 3 officials I hate. I hate them. At least we don't have Boger, but we have Cleat, Sean Hockley, who loves being the villain. So road teams, road dogs, he's doing Jacksonville, Kansas City. And Sheffer's the same way. They love being the villain and getting booed and making calls on the home team. Just generally speaking, this doesn't happen every week. And he's doing Bengals, Bills. So it should be an interesting official weekend because you have Bill Bennett who calls none, and then you have these other three refs who are known as very flag happy. So we'll see if the NFL told them to stuff it this weekend, but something to keep your eye on.
Yeah, too bad you're not on Convince Me because Chad loves those rough trends. So I'm sure he's listening to this and he'll love that. So
he'll use it now on the favorites.
Yeah.
Shout out Chad. I if you don't mention Sean Hockley and his villain on the favorites, I'm going to be very, very upset. I know you didn't listen.
All right, let's jump into the divisional round 6-pack. All right. Another sweep for me. So 78-55. First pick is me. I'm gonna start out with a prop for this week, and I'm going Devin Singletary under 43.5 rushing yards. And it doesn't so much have to do with the game script in that I think Buffalo is going to lose this game or anything like that, although it'll be a close game. I know you have something on this coming up, but really what I'm looking at with the prop like this, especially, we record this on Wednesday, is, this line is opening as if Devin Singletary is still going to be the lead back on running downs. And that hasn't been the case now for the last 2 weeks. And you look at James Cook, and James Cook took a back seat to Singletary in the passing game last week. Nyheim Hines also factored in, but on rundowns, Singletary's been out carried 9-7 in the game against New England to close the season. And then last week he was out carried 12-10. And this Cincinnati run defense also has been very good with DJ Reader back in the lineup, so he missed kind of half a season, but they're number 11 in DVOA overall for the season with Reader, whether Reader's in or out. But with Reader in, their yards per carry is about a half yard lower allowed per game. So I think there are a lot of things that kind of point to Singletary not really playing a massive role on the ground here against the Cincinnati Bengal team. I think the Bills are going to have to throw the ball and want to throw the ball against this team. And when they're not, they're using the more explosive Cook when they're handing it off, and they're letting Singletary play up more of the pass downs. He's obviously a reliable pass blocker and whatnot. And it is the playoffs, and that was something that Cook had struggled with to kind of, in his rookie year. So going with Singletary under 43.5 rushing, I have this under 40 for an average. So the median for me here is about, in the mid 30s. In terms of his rushing yards. So I just think that this is another one kind of similar to the Mixon one last week where we talked about, it wasn't necessarily anything to do with the game script as a whole. I just think the number is too high here.
All right, well, I'll build on that. So for my first pick of the divisional weekend 6-pack, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills -5.5 at home against Cincinnati Bengals. If you got, if you were able to get under 4, great. If you were to buy it through, that's great. I mean, now you're in kind of you're kind of in a dead range now. So I would advise hitting it. I don't think it's coming back down to below 4. Maybe it goes up to 6. A lot of sharp money on the Bills here. I know the Bengals are 20-5 against the spread of their past 25. They've gone 21 straight games with Jamar Chase and line without losing by more than a field goal. I think that changes this weekend. I think the biggest difference, let's go, unit by unit. And by the way, this Bengals team, they've covered a lot of games. Some of them have been fluky. Go back to that Patriots game, the Bucks game. They haven't covered the past 2 weeks against Ravens backups who went up and down the field against them, because I think that ultimately this defense is overrated. If you look at who the quarterbacks that they faced this year, it's absolutely a joke. I mean, just look in their division. Faced Mitch Bortles, Kenny Pickett, Anthony Brown, Tyler Huntley in the playoffs. You faced Jacoby Brissett, who you got crushed by, and then a rusty Deshaun Watson. That's your division quarterbacks. How about Joe Flacco, Cooper Rush, Teddy Bridgewater after Tua got hurt, Andy Dalton, PJ Walker? I mean, come on. 9 of their 18 games are against quarterbacks that didn't either start or finish the year as their team's starting quarterback. So I think that this defense, and if you look at a lot of the high variance stats, turnovers, red zone, third down, I think they've been running a bit lucky. I mean, and you hear about the other adjustments in the second half. Good defensive coordinator, but let's slow the brakes a little bit. A lot of it's on the quarterbacks that they faced. And we just saw Tyler Huntley and the Ravens' impoverished receiver group answer with 80-yard touchdown drives whenever they needed to last week in Cincinnati on the road. So I think this defense is a bit underrated, much bigger test now in Buffalo. But let's go to the offensive side of the ball. We know Burrow is great. We know the receivers are great. Who's blocking for them? They're now down 3 starting offensive linemen. It is a bad situation. They could not do a thing in that second half. They couldn't do any 5-step dropbacks. And now you're playing a team that can get more pressure naturally than the Ravens. You don't want to blitz Burrow. Well, the good thing is the Bills can get pressure and they don't have to blitz. And if you look at who this offensive line is projected to be, Jackson Carman, Volson, Ted Karras, who's good center. That's it. Max Sharping and Energy at right tackle. I mean, I was last week, one of the reasons I love the Ravens because Kappa was out and it showed all game. He was, in for 725 passing plays during the regular season. 13th most of any offensive lineman, gave up the second fewest pressures of any offensive lineman that played more than 600 snaps. Now you're down, then you lose Jonah Williams, and then you already lost Lau Collins. Like it's a bad situation. You are back to before square one. When this was your problem, the offensive line, you went out to address it, you did, and unfortunately, there's injuries here. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. Is Burrow's going to get sacked. He's not going to have time to go downfield and take advantage of there's some vulnerability still in this Buffalo secondary because it's not all the way fully healthy and they've had to deal with some injuries. So, and then let's go to this, obviously home field, and then let's go to special teams, where Bills arguably had the best special teams in the NFL this year, and the Bengals were middling at best. So yeah, all 3 phases. I think the Bills have the advantage here. I agree with this sharp money that's coming in on Buffalo. It's gone from 3.5 to 5.5. It's not the wildest move. It's not like 1.5 to 4.5 or something crossing the 3. But I think ultimately Buffalo wins this game by at least a touchdown. The Bengals defense is overrated for the quarterbacks that they faced. The Bills also, their offense has been really unlucky with turnovers. If you look from an EPA perspective, Allen's got to clean some of that stuff up with the fumbles, and some of the turnovers have been a little fluky. On the other side, since he's been lucky in that department, and yeah, the offensive line injuries here on the road, especially, I think that's ultimately the difference. Give me Buffalo here, laying the number.
Yeah, I was on Buffalo in that first matchup on the road. Buffalo was kind of one team when I looked at it. I said, okay, like this Buffalo team has an advantage over Cincinnati, just because I felt like, a lot of people would look at Cincinnati and how they played the Chiefs, kind of considered the class of the AFC aside from the Bills. But I think the difference is the Chiefs don't have an offense and a defense that are, top 5, top 6 in the league, and the Bills do. And so I do think this Bengal team is going to be kind of in for a
They also had offensive linemen before that game, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously going to be an issue, and that, you don't get that long return against the, from Hubbard there, and that could be a completely different game. So now
could be. That game was over. The Bengals offense wasn't doing anything the entire second half. Score a touchdown now. That game is lights out. Ravens are moving on. They probably lose this week, but we would bet them again and cover again with the road Ravens. But at least they got the cover. I thought after that was going to happen, they weren't even going to cover. And I was like, this would be the worst way to not cover over a touchdown I think I can ever imagine in the playoffs. But I think the Bengals are going down there. The offensive, they did 1 5-step drop back the entire second half. They did, I think, like 6 in the first half, got sacked on, I think, 3 of them. He had no time, which takes away your biggest strength, which is your outside receivers. Yeah, I think this is going to be really tough for Cincy, and it's a shame because that offensive line was one thing they tried to address. But sometimes injuries happen. Trust me, I'm a fucking Ravens fan. Happened to us the last 2 years. I get it.
All right, for my second pick and the third overall of the divisional round 6-pack, I'm going with Saquon Barkley over 22.5 receiving yards at FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Action Network podcast. And the reason I'm going over with Barkley here is twofold. Number one, you have the Giants matching up now. Instead of going against a Vikings defense that is a sieve, pretty much all over the field. I mean, Daniel Jones probably played a perfect game outside of, a couple of plays on that last drive and in one sack, which, I don't even know if it was his fault. It was looked more like a coverage sack to me. But now you face this Philadelphia Eagles defense. They're going to be ready for the Giants. And what do the Eagles have that the Vikings don't have? Excellent cornerbacks on the outside. So Isaiah Hodgins, great game against the Vikings. Don't think that'll be there the same way against Slay and Bradbury. Darius Slayton, great game against the Vikings. Don't think that'll be there the same. Now, the Giants have played a little more of two tight end sets against that Vikings game. I don't know if that continues a ton here, but
do you think they also might be able to take advantage of the slot because it doesn't look like Maddox is going to play?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They played more two tight end, so that the only thing that kind of gets me off a guy like maybe Richie James, and maybe later in the week I'll have more of a definitive view on this. But right now, have to be a little more conservative with James because he dropped to a 68% route participation, 66%, route participation rate last week, where Lawrence Cager, the number 2 tight end, really the number 4 tight end, but number 2 pass catching tight end, came out of nowhere to play on 30% of the dropbacks. Now, does that continue? Is that a game plan specific thing? I don't know, but that's the only reason why I think early in the week you don't want to just hammer it over when you have that kind of uncertainty. So check back later in the week, check the Action Network app. Maybe I'll have something on James as well. But I do think what you could see here is more dump offs to Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley in that first game, in the only game he played against Philly, because he sat out the second one, but he played in the first one, he was banged up, but he had 20 yards on just 7 routes run. He was targeted on 29% of his routes in that game. And he ran a route on 95% of the dropbacks last week for the Giants. So this is the playoffs now. Barkley's essentially running a route on every play. Sometimes they're even using 2 backs on the field at the same time. If they do that, I think Matt Breida will be the one to block because you really want to get Barkley out in a route on every single play if you're the New York Giants. In this game, I think that's going to be paramount. And Barkley, 56 yards on 6 targets in the game against Minnesota. So I think you can kind of see that he's kind of stepped it up. And this kind of is a little more game script proof than looking at his rushing. Even though the Eagles have been, that's kind of been their weakness compared to, they're obviously much better against the pass. But, last week we saw Barkley, 9 carries, 6 targets in a game where the Giants, weren't really down by any significant margin all game. So I think that kind of continues this week. I think Barkley is going to be a major factor in the pass game for the G-men. So give me Saquon over 22.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, but Eagles run defense has been a lot better with Jordan Davis in the lineup. And yeah, interesting game. I don't mind that prop at all. Interesting game from a spread perspective. For what it's worth, I mean, the Eagles will be the 21st. You'll hear it's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's a fart noise. But Eagles will be the 21st team in the wild card era since 1990. Excuse me. To face an opponent a third time after a straight-up sweep in the regular season. Those teams are 13-7 straight up, 10-9-1 against the spread. No real angle there. I do think, in a way, so the Giants, they just find ways to cover on the road. We've been over this a million times. As a road dog, Daniel Jones has been amazing. I mean, he's 27-15 against the spread. A road dog under 9 points has been almost automatic. The Giants, as a underdog, they were 11-2 against the spread this year. That's the best underdog against the spread mark over the past 20 years. Dable, who's been amazing, and he's just look. I mean, Daniel Jones isn't reinventing He's not throwing it deep. He's like 40th in big time throw rate, 40th in average depth of target. But it's all Dable. The play calling and Daniel Jones isn't making mistakes and is making all the throws, and the offense is amazing. And Dable's also 4-0 against the spread when facing a team the second time this year, including last week against Minnesota. It speaks to that great coaching staff. But in a way, I feel like the Phillies just being a little bit disrespected here for what they did all year. I mean, this is a team that didn't lose all season with Hurts and Davis in the lineup when they were both in the game. This is a team that beat the Giants by almost 30, and it's just a bad matchup for the Giants defense. I mean, the Giants defense is bad. We got to remember that. I know Adoree Jackson is back, and they're getting pressure, and their front seven, and Thibodeau's playing better, and Martindale can dial up some pressure, but their run D's really bad. Their linebackers are awful, and the Giants defense is so much better when they can play dime, which the Eagles aren't going to let them because they'll just run it right down their throats the entire game, which Miles Sanders did in the first meeting. And then all of a sudden, you can throw to the tight ends, and then you can put their DNs in conflict with Hurts in the option game. So it's just hard for me to see how this Giants team is going to come up with stops other than you got to hold them to field goals. And then you got to hope that Dable calls a really good game. I don't know. So it wouldn't shock me if the Giants, it's a divisional game, the Giants find a way to cover here. For what it's worth, teams with over a 75% win percentage as favorites are 15-30 against the spread in the divisional round over the past 20 years, which obviously would fit the Eagles. So I don't have any play here. I would lean Eagles just because from a matchup perspective, they're also coming off of a bye, should be a little healthier. Lane Johnson, not enough people are talking about how important he is. So yeah, I think it's just a bad matchup for the Giants. I'm not sure they'll be able to keep up if the Eagles jump out in front here. So I'm not sure if you have any opinions on the game itself. I know you lean Giants.
Yeah, I lean Giants just because I watch this team and they're just so well coached. Now I know the Eagles, they had a lot of success in that first game, against the Giants, and that's obviously an issue. But this Giants team, I think, is a live dog. I may end up playing them. The line is still 7.5, so I think it's still a good number. But this Giants team, they have a pass rush coming together now. Their play against tight ends really that worries me against a guy like Goddard. But they have a pass rush. They're well coached. They have a quarterback just like the one on the Eagles who can go off script, make things happen off script. So third matchup, divisional game. The Eagles do have a rest advantage and preparation advantage, but I do think the Giants are not just live to cover, but a live dog to win the game. Anyone they face in these playoffs. So I do lean Giants, but at the same time, I get it with the Eagles. It's they're kind of sitting pretty now. They did what they had to do to secure that 1 seed. So I don't necessarily disagree with people that are going to go the Eagles way, but I don't think 7.5 is a great number to do that with the Eagles. I think if this starts going 7, 6.5. I think that's where you probably ideally you'd want the Eagles at 6, because again, I just think this Giant team is so pesky, and we saw get in the playoffs and weird things start happening. We saw it in that Buffalo Miami game. You could be the better team, and the other team could just kind of hang around. We saw it for a half in the San Francisco game. Seattle kind of had a meltdown in the second half, but I look at those kind of games that you looked at Baltimore. Baltimore. Third time playing them, hung around, like you said, should have won that game. So I'm not counting the Giants out, and 7.5 is a lot of points. And as you mentioned, all the trends really, or most of the trends, as far as divisional round, support the New York Giants. You have the Dogs, opening a field goal to 10.5, 63%. Divisional round dog coming off a win of at least 7. They're 61%. So there's a lot of things kind of pointing to the G-men. So I would lean that way, but haven't made a play yet.
By the way, Ravens should have beat Bengals 3 times with 3 different quarterbacks. One of these years, you Bengals fans are going to get gifted the division. I would say, my gut says that, here's what my gut is saying though. It's like, because I think the line is it's pretty fair. Is that everyone has now started to disrespect the Eagles because, Hurts wasn't playing at the end of the year. They had everything wrapped up, and then everyone's kind of soured on them, even though, they were the last undefeated team. Like I said, they haven't lost with Hurts and Davis in the lineup this year. They were obviously the class of the NFC the whole season. And then the Giants, everyone's kind of, they're everyone's darling. And if you look, they had 10 wins. They have 10 wins on 9 have come by one possession. They beat one playoff team in the entire regular season. It was the Jags in fluky fashion. They got up 7.2 yards per play. Jags like fumbled into the end zone, kept, it probably should have lost that game. That was it. That was their only win over. Oh, they beat Baltimore too. Sorry.
Yeah.
They beat the Ravens in another complete. They gave up. I think they were outgained by like 250 yards in that game. 7 to 4 yards per play. But like, who do they beat? I mean, their schedule was so easy. And they won so many games on one possession. And now we see them beat the most fraudulent. And everyone knew they were a fraud. And then they showed themselves to be a fraud with the Vikings. And now is everyone, are we going a little too far with the Giants and Dable love? Maybe. But all they do is cover in this spot. So I'm not laying the 7.5.
I think the key is, like, at least right now as we record this, just 7.5 is a tough number, like 7.5 is just a tough number to back a favorite. It's one of those numbers where if I really like the favorite 7.5, I'd probably maybe buy the 7 or stay away. So I think now
Eagles are a good tease piece too.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go that way, but yeah, Giants might just be that team that 2011. They just these teams that get hot and then just find ways. All right, for my second pick and the 4th overall of the divisional round 6-pack, I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys plus 3.5 at the San Francisco 49ers. I'm curious by the way, I make this line under 3. I love what I saw from Dak Prescott. He needed that game. That game can propel him to the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl now. And I think they're going to carry that momentum over against a San Francisco defense that has shown cracks, and they haven't played anybody all year. If you look at schedule adjusted, who they've played, it's been a joke. I mean, just look at their division, and their secondary has shown cracks at time. I think Dallas can take advantage. I think Dallas's defense, with the pressure that they can generate, and their new pieces on the back end starting to play a little better. They've adjusted to some of the offensive line issues, but this is also just, okay, I need Brock Purdy to show it to me again. And I mean, we saw the Raiders, we saw the Seahawks for a half. This 49ers back end of the defense, if you're a competent enough quarterback, and they haven't faced many, I think can make some plays here. And here's something I want to bounce, and before I share a few other thoughts on this game. For the first time since 1997, we have 3 teams in the same division in this round, in the NFC East. The NFC East is 30-16 against the spread in non-divisional games. That's the best division, obviously, against the spread mark for any division this year, and the best for the NFC East in 3 decades. So are we underrating the entire NFC East as a whole? When you look at it, like, okay, maybe Washington wasn't as bad as we thought. And, we saw what Dallas just goes down and did to Tampa. The Giants go on the road and handle their business against Minnesota. The NFC East might just be underrated as a whole, but I'll gladly take over a field goal here. I get that, you have a short rest here and you're playing your 4th straight road game, which isn't great. And you're going across the country. I understand that. But I just think that this Dallas defense and the pressure that they can generate can force Purdy into some mistakes here. I think that their offense can carry the momentum from last week against a defense. And this is what I look for in playoffs. Lines are really efficient. Is, okay, what unit is either undervalued or overvalued? And I think in this case, it might be the San Francisco defense overall. We said they're just elite, and I think they're, top 3 defense, but I think that there's more cracks there than we, including myself, have been leading on. And it's just because of the schedule they face, the quarterbacks that they face, the game scripts that they're in. They're usually they'll blow open a game, and then it's really easy for that pass rush and the secondary. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think Dallas is really live, and I'll gladly take over a field goal here. It's all I wanted. I make this now I haven't fully adjusted still from Jimmy G to Purdy, so I'm at these 2 teams are basically even. So I'm at 1-9-2. Right around 2 points, adjust for the situation, short rest. But yeah, I love what I saw from Dallas last week, and I think that they can give San Francisco some trouble in a number of different areas. So give me the Cowboys plus 3.5. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Cowboys getting the hook is the right side because, and I was skeptical about the Cowboys. I had a good week, in the playoffs for this first round, but my biggest misfire was taking the Bucks on Monday night, and I looked at the Cowboys and I just thought this pass offense in particular not really playing well, and I thought the Bucks, a healthy Bucks defense, had enough there to kind of slow them down. That obviously wasn't the case. Never mind the Bucks offense and their struggles, but now San Francisco. I mean, the red flags are even as great as San Francisco's been, and they've been amazing. The red flags are they are facing a team like Dallas. Number one, we've seen. First of all, I'm kind of looking at the San Francisco defense, and in some of my metrics, I know they're tops in a lot of metrics for the season. They're near the top of the league, but down the stretch, they did have some weird things, even with guys healthy. I mean, that Raider game was a little
Stidham
odd.
looks like Montana.
Yeah, and so for the season, some of my because I also schedule adjust, their numbers, and some of my pass defense metrics for the Niners aren't great. They're solid. They're a little bit above average, but they're not super elite, and that worries me because now you're kind of back in Bucks territory. So and it's not like the San Francisco 49ers. They had played the Saturday game. Cowboys played Monday. So there's a little bit of a rest advantage there, but I don't think it's going to be massive here. So it's not like the Niners have had a bye and they're preparing for, 2-3 weeks or anything like that. And then on the other side, you're going to get Purdy against the most pressure he's seen all season, most likely. So, he had a pretty shaky half in the first round, and then he went ham in the second half, like made some of the best plays I've seen from a quarterback all year. So
unreal. But he's also playing against a horrendous defense.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like he's obviously capable of doing great things. And you're gonna need to make off script plays. You're gonna need to scramble against this Cowboy. But at the same time, it's just he just hasn't seen this kind of pressure, this quality of pressure all year. So I think the red flags are there. I think Dallas is always going to be they should be in games. I don't know what that was against Washington. Maybe they were just like, hey, let's just get ready for the Bucks. And that obviously worked, right? They came out and hammered the Bucks from start to finish pretty much. So I look at that hook. I say Dallas is the right side. You can get
a 4. I just played a 4. There's a 4 out there too.
Okay.
3.5 at FanDuel right now. I just played a 4. The 4 popped up. So it looks like there was a little bit of San Fran money. I think this is a close game throughout. I think it's a field goal game. Summerall, Madden vibes, classic 90s nostalgia throwback game that goes right down to the wire. Sort of like the game last year in the playoffs. Yeah. And if you want a couple other trends to add here, and by the way, Dak was amazing last week. He had 28.7 EPA, 7th most in a single playoff game since 1999. But teams to win by double digits in the wild card round as underdogs, 63% over the past 30 years. So, it signals that you can carry over that momentum. They don't get overvalued. Also, you can dogs that take money. Generally, you don't want to get too carried away with this, but underdogs that come down in the line in this round are 73% against the spread over the past 20 years. And teams that have won 10 or more games in a row, so which the 49ers have, in the division round or later, 1-13 against the spread, failing to cover by 8 points per game. And then the 49ers were in that perfect, right? They had 40 plus points, 500 plus yards last week in a playoff game. The week after you do that, no one's ever covered. 0-6 against the spread since 1970. But I ultimately think, those are more for fun. I make this under a field goal, and I think this is a field goal game close to. I'd happily take the 4 with the Cowboys, who I have a sneaky suspicion they might win this game now after what I saw last week, but we shall see.
All right, for my third and final pick, the 5th overall of the divisional round 6-pack I'm going with JuJu Smith-Schuster over 51.5 receiving yards at FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Action Network NFL podcast. And I thought about the Jags for this game. And obviously, I think they're the right side here. Chiefs just have trouble covering big numbers. But I look at the matchup for JuJu here, and I really think that this is a game where he clears his receiving yardage. So the Jaguars play the sixth most zone coverage in the league, and Smith-Schuster averages 2.2 yards per route against zone coverage. That is 12th in the league among 93 qualified wide receivers, according to PFF. And you look at, okay, well, the Jaguars line up Trey Herndon usually in the slot at corner. And you say, okay, well, maybe they switch it up. Maybe they want to go with more man. Well, then you're going to have Herndon, who ranks 106 of, wait, let me say it again. Yeah, he is. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So then you have Herndon, who is 100th of 120 qualified cornerbacks in PFF grade this year. Just over 55 is his grade. And that's who you would have to put on Smith-Schuster most of the time. And I don't know if you're going to, double Vice or double Smith-Schuster in any meaningful way, because you have to worry about Travis Kelce first and foremost if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. And oh, hey, the Jaguars finished number 32 dead last in DVOA against tight ends. So I think that is going to be kind of the focus of the matchup. If anyone gets doubled, it's going to be Kelce, not JuJu. And that's only going to open more things up for JuJu. Then you have the fact that for most of the season, JuJu's kind of been, they've kind of been holding him back a little bit. He hasn't really played a bunch of games where, he's running a route, 90% of the time or anything like that. He started to near the end of the year. And so I think, in this game, he had a stretch from week 14 to 16 where he ran a route on at least 86% of the dropbacks in each game. I think you're going to see him up there more so than his season average, which is 77%. So, in the playoffs, you generally play your best players more. So that bumps him up a little bit as well. And you just factor all those different things in. And I think this is a great number for JuJu here. And you look at his game logs, and he had 2 games, one game where he got hurt and left after 38% of the snaps with a concussion. And then he came back, and his first game back, he only played 38% of the snaps. So if you throw those 2 out, he's played 14 games where he's played pretty much the full game. And he's gone over 51 in 7 of 14. And that's just 50-50. But the thing is, if it's a plus matchup and you think you kind of agree with me here, you can feel confident betting this number even as it increases, because in 7 of his 14 games, he's gotten 74 yards or more. And then in the other 7 in which he didn't, go over the line of 51.5, he's gotten 46 or fewer. So there's a big kind of gap where it's either a JuJu game or it's not a JuJu game. And again, zone coverage, probably have to double Kelce, bad slot corner if you do go to man coverage. All these things point, and the fact that it's the playoffs, increased snaps, all point to the fact that it is going to be a JuJu game. And that's where you usually see him, catching at least 5 balls, getting at least 70 yards on the game. So I'm going JuJu Smith-Schuster over 51.5 receiving yards here against the Jags. And just, by the way, Jaguars also much better run defense than pass defense. So we know the Chiefs love to throw the ball. Don't think they're going to come out super run heavy here. Even if they get a lead here, I don't think they're necessarily going to go, heavy run or anything like that. So I think JuJu short passing game should be a way for them to move the ball regardless. So JuJu over 51.5.
Yeah, the interesting game in that Andy Reid in Kansas City, by the way, unders are 54, 38-1 when they're 7-point favorites or higher, 31, 14-1. We talk about that all the time. They kind of just get their lead, and then they're not that great at covering these numbers. I mean, Mahomes at home, under 500 against the spread. Mahomes over a field goal favorite, under 500 against the spread. When he's on the road or a favorite of 3 or under or a dog, he's automatic. But they just struggle covering this number. Although it is interesting that they're coming off a bye, and Andy Reid, I think, is 21-13 against the spread off of a bye, looking to go to their 5th consecutive conference championship game. against the Jaguars team that just made a miraculous comeback. I think teams that were -4 or more in turnover differential were 0-85 straight up in the playoffs before last week. So they have a bye, rest advantage, prep advantage for a team that's good off the bye at home, and they were -10 at home against the Jags. I don't know, 2 months ago when they covered. There was some Jags missed some field goals, but I had the Jags +10 in that game. The Jags recovered an onside kick. They won the turnover battle 3-0, and they still lost by 10. That's the first game that a team had a +3 turnover differential and lost by double digits since 2018. And only the fourth, it's only happened 4 times since 2010. So that's a little concerning because you look at this Jags, I mentioned the total first. So I kind of lean under, but I'm like, the Chiefs are going to come out and throw it a lot, but these aren't two explosive offenses. And they're both familiar with each other. You both, Peterson and Reed, they're both like horizontal offenses. They already faced each other earlier this year. You're going to see a lot of screens. You're going to see it's all like, let's get yak. And, but the Jaguars secondary could be in a lot of trouble here. And the Jaguars offense is obviously playing a lot better than it was at that time when they played Kansas City. They're also getting a lot more pressure. So it's definitely an interesting game, but I think that, Steve Spagnuolo is going to have some interesting concepts on defense. Lawrence struggles with disguises, certain coverages. The Chargers had a great game plan. He was lost early in that game. It does take him some time to get going. I also think if the Chiefs get down in this game, fire on the Chiefs live. Mahomes can go down the field whenever he wants to against this defense if they're trailing. Kansas City got a lot of pressure up the middle in that first game. They sacked Lawrence 5 times, and I think 4. And he gets the ball so quick, like 2.29 seconds in that game. But they were getting a ton of pressure up the middle, which was really effective in that game. So we'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of screens to try and counteract that. And then there's going to be a lot of dump downs, which brings me to my third play in the 6th overall of the divisional round 6-pack. I'm going to go with Travis Etienne over 17.5 receiving yards. He didn't go over this number last week, but I still think this is too low. Last week, he played 64 out of 74 snaps. He was in the backfield for 58. He played in the slot. They put him in the slot 5 times. They even put him out wide once. He ran 40 routes on the 52 dropbacks. And but he only had 1 catch for 12 yards. But he's basically playing every snap. I remember a couple weeks ago, people were like, "Oh, he's getting his snaps shared with whoever." I forget his name. But that's not happening now. Now it's the playoffs. Like
Hasty only ran 8 routes. Last game. So it was about an 80-20 split in favor of Etienne, which bodes well because it had kind of gotten down to close to 50-50 over the last few games of the regular season.
Yeah, and now you're going up against the Chiefs defense that struggles against short passes, that struggles covering running backs. And I think that this sets up for a lot of screens. And I think that you're even going to see him, you're even going to see him, like they put him in the slot 5 times and out wide once. I think you might see, again, 6 or 7 total routes combined in the slot or maybe out wide here just to get him the ball in space. Hold on a second. And then if you look at his season stats, when he wasn't even playing as many snaps as I think that he will in this game on a game-by-game basis, he went over, he had at least 17 yards in 11 of 17 games. You remove the Baltimore game where he got hurt early. And I hit 3 for 28 against the Chiefs in the first meeting. Chiefs bottom 5 in the league covering running backs in the passing game. I expect them out there a ton. I expect them, the game script, they should be trailing. And I think that there's going to be some design plays for him, some screens and some dump downs. I think there's a really good chance he gets this on 1 catch at some point during the game. So, yeah, I really like McKinnon. I really like Travis Etienne over 17.5 yards. The other 2 I looked at that I'm curious to get your thoughts on. I want your thoughts on that as well. McKinnon over 34.5. I mean, it's past 11 games since, CH has gone down. Clyde has gone down. He's averaging 4 catches for 40. And he's the first running back since 1970 to record a touchdown reception in 5 consecutive games. He's now done it in 6 straight. He had the most reception touchdowns by a running back in NFL history this year. It's pretty wild what he has done. But you can against Jacksonville, he had 6 catches on 8 targets for 56 yards the first time around. He's had some huge games. I was curious on that. And then obviously, and this is just for other people that are thinking about these props, because then you look at Kelsey and then the fact that the Jags cannot cover tight ends. I mean, look at just last week. Oh boy. The best player on the field was the Chargers tight end. So what are your thoughts on those two? And then do you agree with the Etienne over?
Yeah, so I'm actually pissed I didn't pick the Etienne over, because I'm looking at the Etienne over and I have about about 9 yards of value on that one. I have him at 26 because, again, you have to adjust for the amount of routes that
I
he's
did
running.
I did a good prop.
Yeah, you did good. You did good. Yeah, no, that's a sharp one. I will be betting that one very shortly after we get off the pod. That's a great one. I don't even have anything else to say there, except that when you adjust for the routes, Travis Etienne goes way over that number. The McKinnon, I have right at 34. So not showing a ton of value. It's just kind of, the market is kind of caught up to McKinnon being that main passing down back. Now, really, it could come down to game script a little bit, just because, you talk about the Chiefs don't necessarily run away with these games. Well, if it stays close, McKinnon should be out there. They should be passing. McKinnon should be out there a little more. That kind of drives him over, but it's really close here for me, at least. Early week projections, I have him right at 34. And then Kelsey, I have right around his number as well, but I do think there's a little more uncertainty with him. I'm sure he's going to be one of the most popular overs. So if you do like it, probably bet it sooner than later. But I just worry that, and he got, I think, 6 for 81 in the first game against the Jags, so right on the number. But
it might just come down to the Jags play it. They might be like, we'll let Kelsey get a little bit. We'll just let him get his, or they're going to be like, we're taking him away. And then, so it might be like how much, and he's getting bracketed and how, which is hard, which is hard for me to come up with for him. And then if he's getting bracketed, then that might open it up a little more for McKinnon. If not, it's for Kelsey. So that's why I struggled with those two. I was looking at those two and couldn't decipher. But I know that Kelsey's going to be really popular, so I just wanted to get your thoughts there. So you're right on the number.
Yeah, right on the number with Kelsey, right on the number with McKinnon. Would lean with a guy like, if you're choosing between the two, would probably lean with McKinnon, because I think, you get these superstars in the playoffs, and just it's because the Jaguars have been bad against tight ends that I think they look into taking him, at least try, you're never going to take him out completely, but, at least trying to double team him, frustrate the Chiefs. You're going to be playing zone a lot. So it's not going to be a true double team. It's going to be more like a double vice, where you have guys, in the zones on either side of him and whatnot. But I think McKinnon, I would lean, just because, he's been so instrumental, and we saw him kind of, I believe that was last postseason where we saw him kind of take a step up in usage as well, right? So, your other running back that you're going to play is a rookie, Isaiah Pacheco. So, could McKinnon get a few extra snaps just simply because of that? I think absolutely. And you look at the last year's postseason, he cleared 34 in 2 of the 3 games, and he cleared it in each of the first 2. And then, in the championship game, it was dialed back a little, but, they came out the gate, and he was extremely involved. And so that's actually something I'm going to kind of be adjusting for. So I probably actually will bump McKinnon up a little bit more than I have him now. So yeah, I'd lean over McKinnon. I'd lean under Travis Kelsey, and I love the Etienne prop.
Yeah, I would look, if I had to bet this game, I'll go under for the total, but just because I think that Lawrence is likely to make a couple mistakes. Now you hope that they don't lead to like short fields. I think if that could just kill your under right away. But if like he does it in the red zone, neither of these teams are really explosive, and like I think that the Chiefs are going to try to make him throw it on the sidelines where he's not as strong, and kind of take away these horizontal passes. Easier said than done. The Chiefs aren't really good at that. But all it takes is these teams, you're going to be, I think there's going to be longer drives. You get a turnover, a field goal here. It's tough to get over a number like this in 52. There's a reason the Chiefs, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the Chiefs request for the AFC Championship game?
I did not.
The NFL?
I did not.
So it was denied, but they put in a special request to the NFL saying that we want to play, if they play the Bills in the AFC Championship game, they want to play on grass. Which I think is smart, because the Chiefs, this isn't Tyreek Hill Chiefs. They're not as explosive as the Bills. And the Bills on that, I'd rather, if I was the Chiefs, I don't think I'd go this far. Would you? I'm not going to go this far, but like in a way, you might be better off playing in Buffalo over Atlanta, depending on the conditions. Obviously, I would still choose Atlanta, but it's there's a reason that they said, can we play on grass? Now they also play on grass, but that's more conducive to the Bills. But I think that there'll be longer drives. There's not going to be a ton of like big explosive passing plays. I think it's just going to be a lot of like execution and down the field take some time. And if you're not getting touchdowns on a consistent basis to cap off those drives, you're not going over 52.
Yeah, that's true. It's just
unless like some team goes way up, like last week.
Yeah.
That's the fear.
The Jaguars kind of do have those games. I mean, they've had quite a few of those games where it's just, it kind of devolves into just a shootout because of that. And
if the Jags go way up, this game is going way over. So then I ultimately stayed away from the total. But it got up to 53. And I was like, man, that's a little too high, but I'm getting involved in no totals this week. So yeah, I think that'll do it for us.
All right, and let's close it out with our Moneyline Underdog parlay. All right, Stuck 0 for 2 last week for us. Where are we going for the divisional round?
Yeah, I wouldn't go crazy on these lines. They're efficient. It's tough. There's only 4 games to choose from, but I do think there's value in this line. Obviously, I took them as an underdog and loved what I saw last week. And now Dak's like a 55-year-old man now. If you look at the quarterbacks in these playoffs, he's 29. That's the oldest by probably a wide margin. So quarterback experience, the pressure, Dallas defense, and that San Francisco secondary, which I think has holes that Dallas can attack. Let's go Cowboys here. And the NFC East, man, it's just all they do is cover.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I'll go with the Giants plus 290 against the Eagles. Again, I just think this Giant team, they can find a way to win. They're going to need a couple of lucky breaks, but I think they're going to be in it. I think their pass rush is coming on. I think they're healthier on defense than they have been. There's familiarity there. I thought their defense played reasonably well in that final game of the season against the Eagles starters. So give me the G-Men plus.
Key to that whole game is just first quarter. Like Giants withstand the storm, the crowd, and then if you can do that, right? You don't want to be playing from behind against this Philly team and their pressure. But if you could do that, all the pressure will shift monumentally on the road, and then you can be the loose team in the second half, and then anything can happen.
So you put that together, plus 154 for the boys and plus 290 for the G-Men, and you get you win $890 on a $100 bet. So pretty juicy money line underdog parlay. All right. All right, so that's going to wrap it for the divisional round Action Network NFL pod. As a quick reminder, of subscription to Action Pro is how you get the most out of Action's award-winning app. And right now, Action is offering a pro subscription at 40% off. This is only being offered during the NFL playoffs. So if you don't already have Pro, now is the best time to subscribe and unlock all the best features of the Action app. You can find Stucky on Twitter at Stucky2. You can find me at Chris Raybon, and you can find us at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Be sure to check out actionnetwork.com or the app for all of our betting content. Until next time, let's get this money.